Hey everybody, today I'm going to talk about choosing a rigid Heddle loom. Now, I've got everything gathered around me, and hopefully I've got everything that I need because I haven't learned how to splice videos together yet. So I'm hoping to do this all in one take and not take too long. So if you want to weave, and you want to weave with a big loom, a lot of people consider the rigid Heddle looms to be an entry level or a starter loom, and they don't have to be. If you want to weave and you want to weave on a big loom, you can get yourself a big loom. And we can talk about that another time, about choosing a big loom. In the meantime, and even otherwise, I have it on my website that I really feel like if you're choosing a big loom and it's your first loom, that you need to talk to somebody first. Somebody that knows about weaving, whether it's a member in your guild or a shop owner that you trust. You really should talk to them, especially if it's your first loom. Sometimes even if it's your second or third big loom. Floor looms take up a lot of space. They're not super cheap. They're well worth the price that you pay for them, but they need a little bit of thought. And so sometimes it takes knowing somebody to pick one of those out for you. Rigid Heddles are a little bit easier. Part of that may be that the price tag is a little bit easier. They are a little bit different from the big looms in a lot of ways. And they don't have to be your starter loom. They can be your loom. This is what you weave on. And I have 3 big looms and a couple of tapestry looms that are just tapestry looms, and a whole bunch of rigid Heddle looms. And some of them are owned by the shop and some of them are owned by me. I love the rigid Heddle looms and I love weaving on them. I love doing stuff with them. I really get to play with the yarn more when I'm on the rigid Heddle looms. I'm not so much about the product. I'm really in this for the process. So I really, really like the rigid Heddle looms, and so I want to help you pick out the one that's going to work for you. So I'm going to pop up one of the looms that I have sitting here just to kind of give you an idea of what a rigid Heddle loom is in case you don't know what it is. It's got this frame all the way around, and then it's got this, which is the Heddle. So on a big loom, the Heddles are strings or metal and they move across. This is static. This is another one. You can kind of see this. It isn't going anywhere. I mean, we move the Heddle forward, backwards, up and down to create our piece, but on a big loom, these pieces would be able to move this way or that way, and they don't on this. And you've got one. Most of them you can put 2 on, but that's another lesson. I'm trying to keep this so that it's not going to be super long video. But these are things that we'll eventually go over, I promise. So we've got our rigid Heddle loom. This is a Cricut by Shacht. And there's a lot of them like this. And I'm going to go over mostly the Shachts and the Ashfords because that's what I use. There's a lot of good rigid Heddle looms out there, Kromsky and Glamakra as well. These are just the 2 brands that I use the most for myself, and so that's what you're going to see me using. So this one is all warped up, you can see, and warped up. This is the warp, and what we're adding in is called the weft. And what we do is we take the Heddle, and there's 2 spots for it. There's either the up position, where it's up here, you can see it's in this block up here, or it's in the down position, and it's stuck down here, like the bottom of the Heddle is in there. So you can see that. And what it does is it creates 2 different sheds, and the shed is this piece that my hand is through. And so when you've got a shed open, you put your shuttle with the yarn through, and you don't want it tight. You see how it's kind of looped up like that. And you beat it down. That's what's called beating it down. But you don't want to beat it too hard. You just want to push the yarn against its family that's already there. and then you put it in the next position, making the other shed. So the way this works is that it's got holes and slots, and the yarn that's in the slots, you can see, let me set this here, you can see this, it moves up and down in this, and they can be absolutely even. Right now they're all even. The ones that are in the eyes are the ones that are going to move. So this, it moves the eye ones up, okay, and then that moves the eye ones down. And when it does that, it creates two different sheds. And if you had one to play with, you'd really see the way that the two different sheds are being created. So that's basically what a rigid heddle does, basics of how it works. And I just wanted to mention about warping. This is like the big question that people have. There's a lot of people that hate setting up a warp on a big loom. I don't. I love setting up a warp. But if you don't like setting up a warp, or the warp seems scary, the thing about a rigid heddle that's different is that it can be what's called direct warped. And I'm gonna have to do another video on that because that will take a while to go over. But so this is a warping board, and this is the kind of thing that you might use when you're setting up a warp for a big loom project, for a floor loom. You can use it on the rigid heddle project as well, and we'll do some more videos on that. I have a list, a long list of videos that I want to make for you guys, and one of them is showing you how to effectively use one of these for a rigid heddle loom. But most often you use something called a warping peg. It's just this one little peg, and you would clamp it to a shelf away from your loom, measure out the amount you want, and warp from that. So I know there's a bunch of different videos out there for that, and in the blog post, remember how I always link a blog post down below? In the blog post down below is going to be basically the written words for this, not a direct transcript, but it's going to give you all the idea of what's going on here. It's going to have pictures, it's going to have diagrams, and it has a little diagram of how the direct warping sort of works to give you an idea of how that is. So I said this video was going to be about choosing the right loom for you, and so let's hop into that, because I kind of gave you the basics on what these things are and what it does, but we need to really, what do you want for a loom? So what do you want to weave? That's a big thing. If you get something like this, this is as wide as it goes. This is it. This is as wide as it gets. And these looms come in as wide as this. So 8 inches is the smallest that it comes in. So 8 inches wide. And then this one is, that's sitting in front of me, is 48 inches. So you can see this is the heddle for it. Let me just set it down on the ground next to me. It's tall. It's huge. This is such a massive heddle. I'm trying to get it into the whole camera range here. It's huge, right? So some people would think, I'm just going to get the biggest one possible, and then we'll see what we weave on it. That's not always a good option. So here's the thing about the ones that are small, that have just a small width. You can sew strips together. I've sewn a skirt from the one that was only 15 inches wide. I'm clearly wider than 15 inches, and so it took multiple pieces to put it together, but it worked, and it was lovely, and eventually I'll probably share the pattern like that with you guys. But that can work. So you can get a small loom and you can piece things together to make larger things. The problem with getting a big giant loom like this is if you want to mostly just make scarves, which are going to take up about this much of it, you have this much of the loom to contend with. And what you're doing is you're going into the up position and beating down into the down position and beating. And so you've got to keep it from wobbling back and forth. So you could see this one isn't warped up yet, but if I only had the middle warped, which I wouldn't do with this one, I'm only going to warp this one for mostly the full length. Because if I have it warped just in the center, I've got weight here and weight here that's going to make it hard to keep that center moving evenly. And I want to beat down evenly. If I don't want to beat down evenly, then that's fine. I'm not saying you have to, but if that's your goal, is to beat down evenly, and you're getting a giant loom like this, it can make it really, really cumbersome to work with. So, you could get 2 looms. I recommend starting with 1, but you can get 2, and that way you could do giant pieces of cloth, and you can do smaller scarves. So, kind of have to think of what you're mainly going to use it for, what you're willing to do, if you're willing to really deal with having this kind of wobbly. Do you really not want that wobbliness? Do you want to have 2 looms? Kind of, you know, pro and con lists are really good, or actually just writing down a list of what you want out of this loom. And think about it for a little bit and think, I need this, I need it to that, I need it to this, I need it to do that. And it may change in the future, and that's when you would resell it and get a new one, or keep it and get a new one. But, I mean, these are all down the road things. What do you want to do with this? What is your goal with the loom? And kind of go from there. And it may just be that you can get one of the smaller looms and it's going to make you happy. The other thing that you need to think about is, where do you want to weave? This thing is 48 inches. It does not automatically come with the frame stand to set it up with, but it needs it. So some of the smaller looms, like this guy, I just, you know, set it on my lap. It can, you know, if I am sitting on the floor, I can put my legs out and it's comfortable to weave on. I can set it against something like it is right here and I can weave on it. And it is comfortable. I have my 15-inch, or 16-inch, because it's an Ashford. Same thing. Sits on my lap, sits on the back of the table for this one, because it's a little bit too wide for me to just put my legs out and have it sit like that. But I can just be very comfortable with this on my lap and against a table or something, and weave off of it. And then we start getting bigger, and this is a 20-incher, and I can weave on this sitting on my lap and against a table, but it's this one that starts to get uncomfortable weaving with it against just a table and my lap. It starts to get a little bit big. Okay, so the 20-inch is just starting to get a little bit big and starting to make me think, okay, anything bigger than this and I need a stand for it. So I do have, well, clearly there's the 48-incher here. There's 30s, 36s, 35s, 32s, depending on the company you're going with. There's all these different sizes. This is a 25 of Shaq's, and you can see that this is sitting on a stand because I realized after getting the 25, it was just too big to sit on my lap. It was just uncomfortable to weave with it with one end at the table and one end on my lap. It needed a stand. So that's the next important thing to decide, to help you decide on the size that you need. Do you want to just weave on your lap and have a small loom to weave off of? Or are you perfectly fine having this big thing taking up space, because this one doesn't fold at this point. This one, you can unscrew it in the 2 spots, pop it out. You can kind of hide that frame and you can kind of fold it up. But when you've got a frame, and it sort of stays there. So do you have room for it? Are you accepting of having a big frame? Are you okay with that? What are you okay with? So that may help you narrow down the size that you need. And then as for travel, so you've got looms like I showed you, like this guy. I have small IKEA bags and stuff. He easily fits into one of those, like it's a largish grocery type bag. He doesn't need to break down. The Cricut that I showed you in the beginning doesn't need to break down. Some of these other looms, you can see these right here, I could unscrew them and they fold together. The Ashford has the knitter's looms that do that. So there's different companies that make them that will fold for you, and there's others that make them that don't fold. So Ashford has a line of ones that are small that go in, that are fold, and that aren't. So this, I wouldn't call this a traveling loom. I could probably travel with it. I have a truck. But I wouldn't call it a traveling loom. I would want either something small or something that folds to travel with. And I have traveled with 3 looms before. We were staying in a cabin for a week, and I warped all my looms, 3 of them that I had that I felt were good to travel. And let's see, there was the Cricut, and the 16-inch of this I felt was fine to travel without it folding, and then another 15-inch that folded. And that's what I brought with me. So the 3 kind of took up about that much space, and it was fine. Again, I have a truck. So it was able, I just packed it all in there with all of our stuff, and it was great, and I wove all week, and it was fine. So think of how you're traveling, what you're traveling with, and do you need something small? Do you want to travel with your loom, and do you need something small? Okay, so that's it. Hopefully that's helped you come to some kind of conclusion, or to help you on your way to picking out the loom or rigid heddle that you want. But I just want to bring up the tools that you're going to need. So if you're buying a used loom from somebody, it may not come with the tools that you need. If you're buying a loom kit that's already ready to go, or a kit that's ready to put together straight from the factory, they should come with just about everything to get you going. But I want to show you what we have here. Just, well, there was the direct warping peg, so you want to make sure that you've got that. You want to have some sort of heddle hook. So there's 2 different kinds, basically 2 different kinds. So this is what, when you have this like this, you would put this through. Can you see that? Maybe you can't. This you probably can. So you'd put that through, loop your yarn through, and pull it through. And that's what you want. This is going to be this is big enough to do the slots, but it's far too big to do the little holes. So you're going to need one of these smaller ones to do the little holes. So, and we have, let's see, we have a couple different kinds of shuttles. These are stick shuttles, and most of them come with stick shuttles because boat shuttles, like you would use on a floor loom, are too big for the shed, mostly. There's some slim ones and some smaller ones that you can get away with, but for the most part, they're a little bit too big to go in through the shed. So you use a stick shuttle. And like for this big behemoth 48-inch, this is a 48-inch stick shuttle. It really is that long, because you got to go from one end to the other. It doesn't slide like a boat shuttle slides on the larger floor looms. So you've got these kinds. They all work. Stick shuttle is just good and basic, and you can see that there's different opening shapes, and I don't find that it matters. The size, the length is what matters, because you want it to be, if you're doing like a bigger loom and you're just doing a narrow project, a narrow one is fine. But once you get bigger, you need to be able to pass it through, because it doesn't slide. You have to be able to pass it through and grab it from the other side. So you need one that's at least the length of your project, maybe a little bit longer, just so that you can get it back and forth pretty easily. And this is kind of a bonus thing. These are, well, that's a sword, but these are pickup sticks, and they're handy for when you're doing some type of patterning. I will talk about that another time. They're not a must-have, but they are a nice to have. And there's a few other ways that I use them other than just patterning. Sometimes you've got some loose warps, and they're easy to help you tighten those down. But you don't have to have those. The other things kind of are necessary. The last thing I wanted to talk about are the heddles. So this is a group of shacked heddles, and you've got a 5, and you can see how wide everything is there. We have an 8, we're getting a little more narrow, a 10, and a 12. And in a previous episode, I talked about how to pick which heddle to use and kind of give yourself an idea. In the post down below, you know, where all the subscribe and all that stuff is, I'm posting an article that I wrote that kind of also gives you an idea of if you're choosing a bulky weight yarn, then you're probably going to want to choose the 5. I wanted to mention Ashford has the same ones, slightly different because they're using metric, except they also have a 15, which you can't really tell on the video probably, but it is really, really thin and really narrow. I have not used this yet, but I do have plans, so that might be the next thing that I set up is something with this. But I've made so many concessions over the years to use rigid heddle, to change the yarns that I'm using, or to do 2 heddles, or to double things up, that the 15 was just like, oh, hey, that's a bonus. And then I started like, okay, all the projects I have set up to do aren't even thinking about a 15. So I need to start thinking about using the 15 and what I want to use it for. Because everything I have in my head set up to do is making concessions and using it with the other ones. So I think that needs to conclude it. This video has gotten really, really long. And I could go on and talk to you further and more about all these looms. And if you have questions, by all means, post them to like the Patreon page. It's helpful to keep everything in one place, or post them to the YouTube. Either one, that works. And, or the blog. Gosh, there's so many places you guys can post questions. I'm hoping that the notifications are all working, so wherever you're posting them, I get them. But I would be more than happy to help you pick out your first or second or more rigid Heddle loom, whatever you need to help you get going and to get you started to weave more. So I hope that was helpful. Happy weaving.